All right, diving in today. We're tackling It's a Wonderful Life, and wow, you guys sent in a lot this time. Articles, trivia, even saw some pretty heated takes on social media.
Yeah, some strong opinions about this one for sure.
Well, I'm ready for all the feels. Holiday cheer, maybe a few tears along the way, right? But let's get to it. What makes this movie so powerful? Almost 80 years later, it's still huge. So is it just that nostalgia factor or something more?
It's funny. When it first came out, right after World War II, it actually bombed at the box office.
Yeah.
It barely made back its budget.
Wait, seriously?
Mm.
A flock? That's crazy, because now it's like the Christmas movie, right? 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. Everyone watches it.
Yeah.
So what happened? Why the lukewarm reception back then?
Well, maybe audiences weren't ready for, I don't know, how real it got. It deals with some pretty heavy stuff for a holiday movie. The depression, losing everything. It even touches on suicide.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of depth to it. Like George Bailey, James Stewart's character, he's always putting his own dreams aside for his family, for his town. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling of sacrifice.
And Stewart himself, he was a war veteran, probably dealing with, PTSD and all that. It makes you wonder how that his own experience played into that incredible performance, especially that bridge scene. So much raw emotion.
Definitely. It gets dark. Pretty intense for a holiday movie. What do you think? Why did Capra, the director, go there?
That's a good question. Maybe he wanted to show that life, even during the holidays, isn't always picture perfect. Like real joy comes from facing the hard stuff, not just pretending it's not there.
I could see that. It's like finding hope, even when things are tough.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of hope, what about that part where George gets to see what the world would be like if he was never born?
Oh, right. That whole what if scenario. It's terrifying, right? Bedford Falls becomes Pottersville, all sleazy and neon lit, like a nightmare.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just some random fantasy. It shows how much one life can impact everyone else. George thinks he's worthless, but the movie shows us how wrong he is.
Exactly. One life rippling outwards, touching all these other lives. Makes you think, doesn't it? What would the world be like without you, Air?
Whoa, deep.
Right. It's a big question. The movie doesn't really give us easy answers, but it definitely makes you stop and think about, the impact we all have. Do our actions, even the small ones, actually matter?
And to think a movie that flopped at first is now like a cultural phenomenon. I mean, we're talking billions of dollars in cultural impact. People quote it all the time. The whole idea of wonderful life means something, more than just a movie.
It's become a symbol, for sure. And it's not just the feel-good parts that people connect with. It hits on anxieties we still have today. Like George trying to find his purpose, feeling that pressure to succeed. That's so relevant, especially now. Burnout is a huge issue.
Right, it's like the movie predicted all this stuff, even 80 years ago. Even something like loneliness, that was around back then, but it feels so much bigger now. Didn't you say something like 1 in 3 people feel lonely?
It's a crazy statistic, but it's true. Almost like a silent epidemic. And It's a Wonderful Life, without giving us easy answers, it shows how important connection is. Like when everyone rallies around George, reminding him he's not alone. That's powerful stuff. We all need that.
For sure. And what about Mr. Potter? He's the bad guy, right? Lionel Barrymore, he nailed that role.
Yeah.
So greedy, so willing to use people. Feels very, relevant to today, too, with all the corporate scandals and stuff.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, are we still fighting the same battles? Potter represents that selfish me-first attitude, and George is all about community. Two very different ways of being in the world.
That clash between greed and compassion, it's still happening today.
Mm-hmm.
So how did Capra manage to, create this magic on screen?
The movie is visually stunning, too. I mean, think about the set for Bedford Falls. He built the whole thing, like a massive 4-acre set. Instead of using those fake studio backdrops, he was committed to making it feel real.
Yeah, the details are amazing. And that scene on the bridge, just James Stewart, no special effects or anything.
Yeah, pure emotion, right. His acting is so raw and vulnerable. I read somewhere that his tears in that scene, they were real.
Wow, that adds a whole other layer to it. And what about the black and white? That was intentional, right?
Oh, yeah. Color film was becoming popular, but Capra stuck with black and white to set the mood, you know? And I think it really adds to the timelessness. It doesn't feel dated, even though it's from another era.
Totally agree. It's like classic. And it's funny? Some of the best parts were accidents. Like the bell on Zuzu's pedals.
Oh, right.
Someone rang a bell by mistake, and Stewart, he just kept going. And it ended up being this, iconic moment.
Talk about movie magic. Sometimes the best stuff happens when you least expect it.
And the characters, they're all so memorable. Donna Reed as Mary, Lionel Barrymore as Mr. Potter, Henry Travers as Clarence the Angel. Such a great cast.
Yeah, Capra really knew how to pick them. He wasn't after big stars. He wanted actors who could, bring these characters to life. Like Donna Reed, she actually wrote her lines in her Bible.
No way.
Yeah. And Lionel Barrymore, some of Mr. Potter's cruelest lines, those were ad-libbed.
Really? That's amazing. What about Bert and Ernie, the guys who always hang out at the bar? Their scenes are always so funny.
I read that the actors, Ward Bond and Frank Phelan, they were actually friends in real life. They even served together during the war.
Wow, so they had this real bond on and off screen. That makes their performances even more special.
Definitely. It's those little details that add so much richness to the movie.
It's a reminder that these stories, even fictional ones, are ultimately about, human experiences. And it's a wonderful life. It doesn't shy away from the messy parts of life either, the grief, the regret, even anger.
For sure. It doesn't try to pretend that everything is perfect. It acknowledges the hard stuff. But ultimately, it shows us that, even in the face of all that, hope and love, community, that can make all the difference.
It's such a powerful message, especially now when, things can feel so uncertain. It's like those old fairy tales.
Yeah.
They can be whimsical, but they also deal with big stuff, universal themes.
Totally. And even though the movie is set in a specific time, the 1940s, those themes of loss and grief, searching for meaning, they're relevant to everyone. It's interesting how It's a Wonderful Life has inspired so many other films, like Home Alone, even Elf. You can see the influence there.
It's that mix of humor and sentimentality, and in the end, good triumphs over evil. It's a classic formula that works. But of course, not everyone loves the movie. Some people think it's too sentimental, too long, just too much Christmas cheer.
I get that. It is a long movie,
Yeah.
over 2 hours. And yeah, some of the slang is a bit dated. But I think what's remarkable is how powerful those core themes still are. Like they cut through all the, tinsel and cheer.
It's true. And even the biggest critic can't deny the power of some of those scenes, like when George yells, "I want to live again."
Oh man, chills.
Such a raw, desperate moment. And
Yeah.
James Stewart, he delivers it perfectly.
He really does. You can feel George's pain, and his desperation turns into this like realization that life is worth living. Stewart was a master.
He really was. And we can't forget about Mary Bailey, Donna Reed's character. She's more than just a sweet wife. She's strong, independent, and totally devoted to George.
Remember that line, George Bailey, I'll love you till the day I die? So powerful. It's a declaration of love, sure, but also shows her strength. She's his partner, his equal.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And then there's Mr. Potter. He's the villain. And man, he has some cold-hearted lines. Like when he tells George, "You're worth more dead than alive."
Oh yeah, that one is chilling. Especially since, George is actually considering suicide. Lionel Barrymore, he was so good as Potter. He really captured that, I don't know, that ruthlessness, that greed.
It shows that even in a nice town like Bedford Falls, there's darkness, right?
Yeah.
But even with that darkness, there's hope. Like with Clarence, the angel who comes to help George.
Right. Clarence, he's kind of goofy and bumbling, which is funny because the movie is dealing with such serious stuff. But his message, you've been given a great gift, that's powerful. It reminds us that every life has value.
Such an important message, especially now. There's so much loneliness and isolation in the world. It's like the whole town, they all play a part. Uncle Billy, Bert, Ernie, they make Bedford Falls feel like a real place where people care about each other.
That small town vibe, right? Everyone knows everyone, always ready to help out.
Exactly. We need more of that, especially now. And a lot of those smaller roles, they were played by actors who were also veterans, like Ward Bond, who played Bert, and Frank Phelan, Ernie.
Yeah. They were buddies in real life, served together in the war. So that, that friendship you see on screen, it was real.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Has another layer to the movie, doesn't it? Like, even though it's a story, it's still about real people, real connections. Now, I know some folks think It's a Wonderful Life is, I don't know, maybe a little too sweet, too sentimental. What would you say to them?
I think you gotta remember when it came out. Right after World War II, people needed something hopeful. And yeah, the movie gets dark, but in the end, it's about redemption, about seeing the good.
It's about appreciating what you have, even when things are rough, and realizing that we all make a difference. Even the smallest actions can have, a big impact.
Yeah, that ripple effect. It's a powerful idea, and it's something we all need to hear. Even in our cynical world, there's still room for believing in good things, believing in each other.
I love that. Okay, before we wrap this up, remember that what if moment where George sees the world without him in it? What if we could all do that? What do we even want to?
Ooh, that's a tough one. To see how the world would be different? without our presence, everything we've done, all the connections we've made, it would make you really think about the mark we leave.
Right. It's like, what kind of legacy do you want to have? What would people say about you if you were gone?
It's humbling, right? But also, it's a good reminder. We get to choose how we live our lives.
It makes you want to make every day count.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate the little things. The people in your life make a difference however you can.
Well said. Well, I think that's about it for our deep dive. But before you go, do yourself a favor and watch It's a Wonderful Life again. Really pay attention this time. You might notice new things.
Yeah, look for those subtle details, those moments of pure emotion, those themes that, still speak to us all these years later.
And while you're watching, think about those questions we talked about. What kind of impact do you want to have? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? Because
Hmm.
even when life is hard, even when you feel lost, there's always hope.
Always a chance to make things better, to start over, to live a wonderful life.
Beautifully put. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and most importantly, keep believing in each other. Because like It's a Wonderful Life shows us we all have the power to make the world a little bit brighter, one kind act at a time.